If you're experiencing any sort of difficulty, you can just go myself. My name is Micheline Trudeau, and I'm from the Heart and Stroke Foundation. And we're here for a webinar on farm to school salad bar programs. And this was really started, again, from some interest in the national farm to school grant program that's going on right now. So for today, what you're going to see with our presentation, for some reason I can't advance the slides. There we go. Yeah, this really, how this came about was some partnership work that we've been doing with an initiative called Nourishing School Communities, and it's a 3-year grant that's from the Canadian Partnership Against Cancer, various partners, but the two that are on the call here today is Farm to Cafeteria Canada and the Heart and Stroke Foundation, and we're two of the partners that are involved in that Nourishing School Communities initiative. So, and then another piece to think about for some of you that may have attended, we had a national school food conference in November in Montreal. It was called Changing the Menu, and so from that event we're also continuing to do some ongoing webinars and other knowledge exchange activities. So that's where you might have heard about this webinar as well as through Changing the Menu and that website, but and also Farm to Cafeteria Canada has been promoting this and various partners across the province. So for today, what you're going to see is I'm going to shortly turn the stage over to our first presenter, which is Chris Peters, and he's a teacher from St. Bonaventure's College in St. John's, New Brunswick. Sorry, not New Brunswick, St. John's, Newfoundland. And so he's going to start with his presentation about a farm to school salad bar program that has really been running for a few years now there. And right after his presentation, we're going to go into a Q&A session, and that's going to be with questions specifically to Chris and any questions about sort of running a farm to school salad bar program. And then we're going to turn things over to Joanne Bays, National Manager for Farm to Cafeteria Canada. And this is where you're going to hear more specifically about the farm to school grant opportunity. So Joanne's going to talk about the grant and some specifics, and then there'll be another Q&A session, which is really around getting some questions specific to the grant and some questions you might have. I just want to highlight here right away that any questions that don't get addressed on the call today, you're welcome to submit them to us. So before we start, just a few quick housekeeping things. With this webinar system, you'll notice that if you're a participant, you will not be able to, we can't hear you. So everyone's muted except for the speakers. So really important, to use your audio, you can either listen by phone or through your computer speakers, but you won't be able to talk throughout. So in order to ask questions, you're actually going to have to use either the question feature, which you will see on the panel at the right-hand side from the webinar. You can use the question feature or you can use the chat feature. So you should be able to see both, and that's the way that you can send us your questions and we can help to address them. Or if you want to, if neither of those options are working for you, you can actually email Pascal, and Pascal is here with us at the Heart and Stroke Foundation office, and she's going to be monitoring her email throughout this and taking your questions. And again, any question that you don't get addressed, you can email Pascal after, and she'll send a little reminder email at the end of this webinar to send your questions, and we can make sure that we get those answered and sent to you. Just one more thing about questions. We're going to not address food safety questions on the call today because it's a very different situation for BC and Ontario, so we're going to just leave those questions and save them for follow-up that we're going to do afterwards. And actually, I think that's basically it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn things over to Chris, who's going to be our first presenter, and he's going to just give him a second here to get started. And Chris is going to use his webcam, so you should be able to see him there. And it's a little bit later in the day for out in Newfoundland, and end of the school day, right, Chris?
Yeah, it's 4:30 here, so.
4:30, all right. So, and we'll turn things over to you. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, good afternoon from where I am. This presentation is about the Salbar program at St. Bonaventure's College. We're a K-12 school in St. John's, Newfoundland, an independent school of about 365 students. And we started our Salbar program, the grant process, in June 2014, and it's been up and running since April of 2015. So I've identified 7 helpful tips from grant application through to the implementation of the Salbar. So this next slide just kind of identifies the process I'm going to go through. And you'll notice I've been using a lot of garden metaphors for reasons that I hope become apparent as I go through. But I'm going to start with the grant process, support from school administration, the application for the grant, the importance of developing relationships, relationships within the school, but also outside the school and in the farming community, and the food security networks that you may have locally, the problems that may come up, that inevitably come up, and the strength of relationships to help those, and then some of the specifics that we use the grant in our Salbar very briefly, and then the arrival at the Salbar. So I'll start. This is a picture of our school campus. This is it's a picture that actually appeared in Owl magazine. This is our school garden, 6 garden beds. Owl magazine got to us a little bit late, so you're seeing a picture post-harvest in, I think it was early November. But our garden program is really the starting place for our salad bar program. We started the garden program in 2008. And it was really coming together. Students and teachers, myself included, were interested in composting and growing things, and we realized we didn't really know what we were doing. So that initial, desire for a garden to be growing vegetables on campus as a teaching tool, but also, just teaching kids about local ecology, history, etc. That led us to reach out to the local farming community, organic farming community, and also the food security network, Food First Newfoundland Labrador. So both organizations were extremely helpful. We've had students working with local farmers since 2008, learning the basics of farming. And Newfoundland's a bit different than other places in terms of what grows here, what doesn't grow here, the growing season. So all of these things have been very helpful, and just that developing that relationship between ourselves and the local farming and food security communities were instrumental in getting our garden program started in keeping it going since 2008. Very important in getting our compost program up and running successfully since 2008. But it was also really, we feel at the school, instrumental in getting a salad bar program here at the school, for reasons that I hope will become apparent as we go forward. So these are some of the partner organizations we had initially in the garden program. Food First NL was Food Security Newfoundland Labrador, and they're working with food security issues in Newfoundland Labrador, which are extensive. Newfoundland Labrador right now is growing 3% of their vegetables that are consumed in province, and I believe Newfoundland Labrador has the lowest consumption of vegetables of any province in Canada. And the second picture is Seed to Spoon, which is a local organic farm. And Sarah Crocker, who's in the picture, She works with Food First NL as well, so she's wearing a couple hats, but she's worked with us helping set up our garden, how to tweak our garden, how soil improvement, these kinds of things. So, these are some of the relationships that we established fairly early on as we were building up the garden program, and that were really important in starting our salad bar program. So that's what I would say, and I would say both organizations were very agreeable to meeting with schools, and were keen to see vegetables in schools in whatever way that might take. Okay. Also important to our school was support from our school administration. In 2014, independent of myself, students came to Mr. Tom McGraw, pictured here. He's our school president, and they said they were tired of processed carbohydrates, the food that they were getting in the school cafeteria. So he said he was interested in exploring some different ideas. At about the same time, I had a presentation from Food First NL in my class, and one of the ideas that was presented was a farm to school program. And I thought, wow, it's a really neat idea. I brought that to Tom. He suggested I go ahead and explore what kind of options we might have. That led to some meetings, and it ended up meeting with Lester's Farm Market. They're not an organic farm, but they're a heritage family farm, 150 years in Newfoundland, Labrador. St. John's, Newfoundland, I should say. And they were very agreeable to the idea of growing a relationship, but also of providing us vegetables for our program. And I would really say that's so important. If Tom had said no, he wasn't interested. He already had a contract with our school food service provider, which is Chartwell's, and he was interested in exploring different ideas. That pretty much would have ended any kind of exploration of that idea. But he's been very supportive of this from the get-go, and that's pretty important to any program. Right. So having identified that we wanted some kind of relationship with a farm bringing in fresh produce into our school, we then got the go-ahead to explore that. I spoke with Susan and Mary Lester. They're in the picture you're seeing now, Lester's family farm. And then very quickly, Sarah Ferber of Food First NL said, you know what, there's a grant available for Farm to Cafeteria Canada. Are you interested in applying? Which we obviously were. Lester's was very interested. It seemed to fit everything that we were doing. So at this point, we set up a meeting with Chartwell's. So Chartwell's is our school food provider, food service provider. And we weren't really sure going into this meeting how agreeable they were going to be. Whether they would say, no, they're not interested in the idea, we're a fairly small school, we don't have a lot of pull. So we did some preliminary research going into that meeting just to find out what Chartwell's does in other places. We found out that they do run salad bars in their American operations, that they had garden programs. But when we sat down with them, we actually found that they were very agreeable to the idea of a farm to cafeteria program, and I think that's important to stress. They were interested in the idea. They liked the possibilities there. I think in hindsight, if we'd been a little more specific with, this is what we want from our salad bar, how many times a week we wanted the service to be operating, a price range that we were comfortable with. These kinds of things. I think we could have clarified things in that initial stage, but going into it, that first meeting, we just thought, we'll explore the idea, and they kind of surprised us by saying, oh yeah, this is a great idea. Let's go with it. The other thing we missed out on in that initial meeting was we didn't invite the on-campus Chartwell's employee to that meeting. We just kind of assumed the Chartwell's regional manager would speak to her. That wasn't the case. and it took us a long time to kind of get our on-campus employee on board to the idea. So that was a mistake in hindsight. So again, those relationships are so important. You know, obviously you're reaching out to the farming community. That's almost easier. It's more difficult when you're reaching out to your school food service provider because they're going to have a different mandate in these kinds of operations. Right. I think I can. Right. So I think pretty key to my talk here is developing relationships. As we came together to apply for this grant, and then after we had applied for this grant, we were bringing together myself as a teacher, but also other teachers who were interested in seeing better food in school, and definitely very keen on seeing a salad bar. We were bringing in parents, we were bringing in students. Sarah Ferber of Food First NL was part of this. We had the Chartwell's regional manager, and we were trying to decide what our salad bar would look like, what was feasible, what wasn't feasible. And this was pretty important because Chartwell's is a for-profit model. They were looking at, they have a very different model than we had. Lester's Farm, myself, teachers were looking at getting local vegetables into the school, and the students brought a different perspective to that as well. They were able to say, sometimes they like cinnamon buns, and sometimes those cheese pizzas were exactly what they were looking for. So we had to kind of try to find consensus out of all of this as we moved forward. So those relationships were pretty pivotal. And it was actually a fairly long process for our school as we went forward. We started meeting in, I think, July 2014, and our salad bar didn't come up until April 2015. And there were a few problems that came up, so they're highlighted here. One of the big sticking issues was, Chartwell's was concerned about who would be administering the salad bar, who would be looking after it, who would be preparing the salad bar, these kinds of things. We had a lot of meetings talking about the same issues again and again, and we had to be comfortable, in what we wanted, and we had to hear what they wanted, and we were trying to work together. And those relationships were just so important to that process. It was a lot of meetings, and there were a lot of meetings that ended seemingly not going anywhere. But I think it's trusting in those relationships that you've developed that you can find some common ground that eventually led us to be able to set up our salad bar successfully. There's still ongoing issues that we have with our salad bar today, including pricing, which I won't go into here, but it's still an issue that we're talking with Chartwell's with. All right. Okay. So having got the grant, having developed the relationships, and I would say those relationships are really pivotal to setting up a successful program, that we could then add the compost, if you like, to our garden soil. In this case, getting the things you need for your salad bar program. And I'm sure you've all seen a farm to school, a fresh crunch and school lunch. The BC Farm to School Guide, excellent resource, full of all the things that you will need, and you can manipulate as you need for your school program. Very helpful, but for our program, I think the relationships were absolutely pivotal and foundational to the whole program. And finally, having gotten everything, we ended up at the salad bar. This is a picture of one of two salad bars. We have two buildings on campus. We have, this is Holland Hall, so this is our K-6 building, students serving themselves, so we successfully negotiated that with Chartwell's, and it got it up and running. It's ongoing. There we are. Okay, so we've included some resources here which you can make use of if you like, and there's my contact information. So that's my presentation, and I'm not sure if anyone had any questions for me.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Excellent presentation. Nice to see the 7 steps all laid out. And to start from the grant process, that's great, especially for people on this webinar. So I'm going to turn things over to Pascal. I think we have one question so far, but if others want to put them in, now would be the time. So I'll turn it over to Pascal.
Hi everyone. So our question is from Lauren Clark, and she wants to know if Chris, you can indicate how significant the grant was. Did you have to fundraise any money additionally to the grant?
No, we didn't. We got a grant that covered, you know, getting the equipment that we needed to start up our salad bar, as well as, you know, some education. So, you know, it allowed us to travel, well, allowed me to travel to an information session in Bucktouche, New Brunswick, in order to see what they were doing, and that was really informative for our program. See, you know, what they're doing at their school, what was working, what wasn't working, bring that back to our school, see what we could do. It also allowed me to talk with a wider community, some schools in New Brunswick, see what was working for them, what wasn't working for them. So yeah, the money was enough for our program.
Great. We have actually some more questions that just came in. So Jill Sampson also wants to know how many times per week and during which months of the year do you serve the salad bar?
We are serving the salad bar every month that the school is up and running. It's twice a week. So what we have is we have 2 buildings. We have a K-6 building, and we have a junior high, senior high building, 7 to 12. So it operates once a week in the K-6, and it operates once a week in the 7 to 12. Now what we do is Lester's Farm Market, when their produce is available, and they have produce, particularly root vegetables, throughout the year, we're making use of whatever they have available.
Awesome. Jennifer Payne wants to know, did the relationship building take place before the grant process or after the grant was approved?
So, you know, I think we were really lucky. We had an established relationship with Food First NL. We had established relationships within the farming community. We were known. But this process really demanded us to take those relationships further. I think I would say that in my experience, the farming community is pretty interested in making this connection with schools. I think they see it as a possibility, not even necessarily for financial reasons. Certainly not the case with Lester's Farm and us. It's more about how do we get kids thinking about eating vegetables? How do we get kids eating vegetables in schools? And not just vegetables from Cisco, but vegetables from a local farm, and get them talking about what's happening at Lester's Farm, what's happening in Newfoundland and Labrador in the growing. And I would think that would be the experience elsewhere. I think farmers are pretty keen to see that happen.
So we also have another question about relationships that Laura Kalina asked about the Chartwells. Did they pay for the farmers to take on that role, or and if so, did the cost was the cost higher to cover their administration?
Sorry, did Chartwells pay the farmer, or is that the question?
The question is if Chartwells pay the farmer to take on the role, and if so, if the cost is higher to cover their administration.
Yeah, so the way our the way the Farm to Cafeteria program works is the contract is actually between Lester's Farm Market and Chartwells, because they're our food service provider. So Chartwells is paying Lester's for their produce as it's available. So they're reaching out to Lester's when, you know, particularly here in the fall when they have a lot of produce and they're getting whatever they have. You know, I don't know the specifics again, because Chartwells is a for-profit, and they haven't necessarily been forthcoming about profit margins, etc. Like these kinds of things are difficult to get a hold of, at least from where I'm sitting. But I can say that, you know, in speaking with Lester's Farm Market, the local farmers, they've been when we've run the salad bar independent of Chartwell's, so at particular times of the year Chartwell's shuts down the cafeteria, and we've run the salad bar independently, Lester's Farm Market has given us produce well below market value. Just kind of, they're just really excited about seeing this program up and running. They want to keep it going, get kids excited about vegetables.
Great. We actually have a couple questions about the running of the program in the cafeteria. So do volunteers run the program or just paid staff or a combination of both? How does it work on the day of?
Sure. So we're really lucky. We have a mother that comes in every Wednesday morning, and she preps everything. She will dice. She's in at 8 o'clock in the morning, right until the salad bar starts at 12. So she does all the prep work for us. And then we have a group of, I think this is right, 7 other parents who come in during their lunchtime to help, not to serve the salad bar, but to just set it up, clean the stations, etc. We did have students last year who were cleaning and taking apart salad bars. We just found that was very difficult. But so we have a group of 8 parents who are coming in every week, and they're, I think there's 4 on Wednesday and 4 on Thursday. So they're doing the cleaning and everything else. Last year I was helping out with some of the cleaning. This year I'm not. So like everything's kind of looked after. So we don't have anyone who's paid doing this.
Sorry, I thought we were going to do one more question. Is there one more quick one, Pascal, you think? Yeah. Hi, sorry, I was on mute. So Vicky Baker asks if how much are the students charged per meal at your salad bar?
Sure. Students at our salad bar are being charged $5. They can go back as many times as they want. Students, sorry, I should be clear. Students from K to 3 are being charged $3.50, I believe, and 4 to 12 are being charged $5. We have voiced problems with the pricing, and I think it will be an ongoing discussion. Again, we're not really privy to the information of how much things charge and profits or anything else that happens in the cafeteria. So the relationship between Chartwell's and the school is the school gets a cut of what Chartwell's makes at the school, which doesn't turn out to be very much. So $5 I think is on the high end for Canada for salad bar, and if the students want to avail of protein, so they have chicken, grilled chicken that they can buy as well, it's an extra $2. But on the plus side, students can go back as many times as they want for salad. What we find is that students in high school go back a whole lot. Students in junior high a little bit. Students in primary and elementary don't go back. They'll go up initially, and then some couple very keen ones will go back for carrots a few times, but certainly not. Anyway, that is our pricing structure, and that's really what it looks like right now.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Lots of great questions, and we still have a few others, but we will send them to you, Chris, afterwards. And thank you for your time. And yeah, I'm sure you were staying on because we might have some questions later on that might apply to you too. So you can stand, but you can unshare your so people don't get confused thinking you're speaking, your webcam. But thank you very much, and we're going to turn things over to Joanne now, who's going to get into talking about the grant program.
Hi, everyone. Chris, that was a fabulous presentation. Thank you. I'm so excited to see all that has happened in Newfoundland in really such a short period of time. And I'm sure there will be more questions for you at the end. I'm going to, for folks on the line, spend a few, I'm the National Manager of Farm to Cafeteria Canada. I'm going to spend a few moments talking about Farm to School a little bit, and then the grants. And I hope that I can get through this in 15 minutes, that's my goal, and leave the line open for questions about the grant. So a little bit about Farm to Cafeteria Canada. We're a national organization. We're fairly young, established in 2011, but we're 3,500 members strong already. And our vision is vibrant, sustainable food systems that support the health of people, place, and the planet. And our mission is really about how do we get more healthy, local, sustainable foods in all of Canada's public institutions. So schools are one, but we're also very much involved in campuses, healthcare, and other facilities. And we're very proud to say that we're leading the national farm to school movement in Canada. We are the national agency that is leading that movement. And by the vision for that movement is actually healthy, local, sustainable foods in the minds, on the plates, and in the mouths of students. So there's a variety of programs and practices and policy work and research going on underneath that umbrella, but we're very much about fostering that from coast to coast to coast. When I say farm to school, most of you should have by now downloaded our farm to school fact sheet, which is on our website, www.farmtocafeteriacanada.ca. But I think it's very important to go to that right now and let you know that it's really farm to school really aims to transform school food systems and regional food systems in order to get to that vision. Healthy, local, sustainable foods on the minds and on the plates of students. And there are three components, dimensions of a comprehensive farm to school program. One is a food literacy dimension, the other is access to healthy local foods in schools, and the third is school and community connectedness. These grants are about building on activity that's already happening in schools, this kind of farm to school activity, to come to a comprehensive program where we are bringing foods from the field into the school cafeterias and delivering that food through a salad bar service. And I just want to say that there's no cookie cutter approach to farm to cafeteria or farm to school. There's a wide variety of successful and sustainable program models. Even though we're going to be talking about salad bars, I really want to keep people from narrowing their lens to thinking that is all we're talking about when we say farm to school. And programs differ in two dimensions. One, how the food arrives at the school from the field to the fork, and they also differ in what happens to the food when it gets to the school. How is it served? So those are the two major places where farm to school models may look different. So we could have a model where we're going from the farm to the school, and the school is actually meeting with a farmer and setting up a direct contract to produce and deliver foods, or a cooperative of farmers, or the school is going to a farmer's market, or the school is going to a grocery store, or a school is purchasing their food through a local food distributor. All of these different models work. We also might have a situation where a schoolyard farm exists, and a farm is really a business. They're in the business of producing and selling foods on schoolyard grounds. And in the farm to school model, we would see those foods getting into the school cafeterias. Most of the farm to school programs in Canada have a school garden or have a greenhouse, and they start there, as Chris said, and it's the obvious place to start because we're in an education environment, and so much food literacy work can happen in a garden. You can have the farm to a separate kitchen somewhere and then to school. That's a farm to school program. And then the other plane, once it gets to the school, what happens to the food? It might be delivered through snack program, hot lunch program, and the very popular model, which is a farm to school salad bar program. We'll talk about that here. Now, my main presentation is about this brand new, very exciting grant opportunity that has been afforded to us in Canada because we have a generous contribution from the Whole Kids Foundation, which is a foundation based in Austin, Texas. They've invested $500,000 US, so that's a lot of Canadian dollars right now, into advancing farm to school in Canada. They want to advance it in the form of providing grants directly to schools starting in BC and Ontario. We're feeling if we do a really good job with this, there might be a possibility to expand this to other provinces. But right now, this funding is available to schools in BC and Ontario. There will be grants up to, schools can apply for up to $10,000 per school. The grants aim to scale up and link existing activity. They support growing, cooking, procuring, and serving healthy local food in a salad bar service at school, just as the one that we heard from Chris. So we're very excited to have Whole Foods as a funder. We are the administrative body, Farm to Cafeteria Canada, and we are working with two of our key partner organizations in Ontario and one in BC, and that is the Sustain Ontario and their Edible Education Network. And Carolyn Webb is the lead there, and we're working with PHABC, the Public Health Association of BC, and their Farm to School BC network, and Vanessa Perdo is the lead there. So those are sort of your main players with helping to make this program happen. And I'm going to not speak a lot here because I think most of you should have by now downloaded the grant application and have read through it. So you visited our website and you've seen that. You've downloaded the guidelines. You've downloaded the questions and answers. I'm hoping you've been working together, pulling a team together and dreaming and scheming about what your Farm to School Salad Bar program might look like. And so really I'm going to touch on a few important pieces out of those documents, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. So I get a lot of questions. I've answered hundreds of questions, hundreds of emails already, hundreds. So this is a very popular grant. Wanting to know what we mean by a salad bar and then providing me with different scenarios and saying, is that a salad bar and do I qualify? So to all people who want to know what we mean by a salad bar, you should read those documents, but read the definition. It's by salad bar we mean a food service that enables students to serve themselves a meal from a selection of healthy local foods that includes a wide variety of produce. So we're looking at a meal. We're looking at a food service. We're looking at healthy local foods. And we're looking at a wide variety of products. And let's not drop the self-serve part. We want kids to have the opportunity to choose their own foods. By healthy and nutritious, so you should be sort of thinking about what you're proposing and measuring it against that definition. There can be all kinds of salad bar model services or ideas. I do understand we live in Canada. I live in Canada too, and it is winter here most of the year, and salads aren't available all of the year, and what can we serve? So in the question and answers document, there's a whole bunch of varieties of different scenarios of what a salad bar might look like. Everything from make your own taco salad bar to soup and salad bar, so be creative. By healthy or nutritious, we mean foods that are fresh as possible, foods that are minimally processed and packaged, foods with minimal fat, simple sugars, and salt. I mean, if you're making a salad bar, it's pretty easy to get foods like that. We're talking about fresh foods. And they need to meet provincial health guidelines and food safety guidelines. By local food, I get a lot of questions about local. We mean foods produced as close to the school as possible. Local may vary over the season. When regional food supplies are exhausted, provincial food supplies are considered local. And then, of course, when provincial is gone, then, the next sort of distance out, which would be perhaps Western or Eastern Canada. Local, you need to start where you're at with local. So if you're purchasing 0 local foods and serving that in your school right now, a modest 5% increase would be fantastic. So you need to figure out what your baseline is and what's a little feasible, modest increment that we could make, and can we increase that over the duration of this contract. This next slide is just what I said. Please visit our Farm to School our Farm Cafeteria Canada website. We have a Farm to School grants page, and these are your key documents here. Application guidelines, common questions, and answers. And there's a bar on the left-hand side of that page where we are constantly adding new helpful resources for grant applicants. So the latest resource up there is the question and answer sheet. But all of these are fantastic resources, from fact sheets to guides. We might be putting up equipment lists. I can see different things going up there in the future. Who is eligible to apply? That's right in the grant document. So again, I'll take questions on this. I get a lot of questions on this. Seems that the co-applicant piece is a little bit confusing for people. We're looking really for a community partner, somebody outside of the school, because this grant is different in that we're trying to encourage this. In previous iterations of the grant, we didn't put a lot of focus on this, but we're realizing that those relationships that that Peter talked about are important. So we want schools to partner with groups like their food security network, who can help the schools, because it's not their normal function, to reach out to the school, to the local food system actors. So that would be your farmers and your fishers and your food suppliers. So a partner who can help make those connections, a partner who can provide some technical support to help, additional technical support to help get the farm to school program rolling. And I won't go through selection criteria because it's right there in the document, but if you want to ask me specific questions on this, you certainly may. Use of funds, again, this is in the documents. See guidelines on page 6, and in the application, pages 14 and 15, we are very clear about what we will fund and what we cannot fund. And we're getting a lot of questions about, oh, how do I deal with these ongoing food costs and ongoing coordination costs? I think the answer to that is to think about your program before you start it, think about it long term, and think about generating revenue. These programs are paid for, the children pay for their food, and you should be able to at least recover, get enough funds to, you need to be covering the food costs, and you need to be covering maybe a little bit of an honorarium for if you're doing any kind of coordination, paying for a coordinator. The optimal situation, of course, would be going into a school that already that operates their own food service, and the salad bar is just being added on to an existing food service, so that the people who are running the food service are actually operating the salad bar. And the food service would have, of course, visions and values that sort of situate themselves and align with what you're doing. That's the optimal. It isn't available everywhere, but really, that's those programs seem to work best. And then I just want to touch on the key dates. Those are on page 6 of the guidelines. Lots of questions about the key dates. I think the most important date to note is that proposals are due March 15th, 2016. So please get them in on time and pay attention to the checklist. Make sure all of your stuff is in that package, because if there's even anything missing at all, then we won't be able to review your document. So just we've created the checklist, so please go through it. And the other thing that's important to remember about these dates is that they are tentative. Okay, tentative. We're still trying to figure out when we might have a training session. We're going to do our best to adhere to those deadlines, but it might be that there is some changes. So I had a little bit of trouble last time when we presented these grants in Eastern Canada, and people really wanted to stick to those dates. So we'll do our best to stick to those dates, but they are subject to change. That's it. I'm open for questions.
Great, Joanne. Go ahead, Pascal. Let Pascal, she's got questions already on the run, so I'll let her take over. All right, great, Joanne. So one of the first questions is this a one-time only grant, or is it expected to continue in the future?
No, it's a one-time grant. If I had $1 gazillion, I'd love to do it again and again. But right now, we were given a one-time.
Short, great, short and sweet answer. Okay, so my next question is, can a proportion of the grant be used to pay teachers' salary to start up the project? So, for example, an EA may only have a part-time work. In order to start up the salad bar program, the EA requires some extra hours.
No, the grant cannot be used to support salary positions.
So
another question about paying partners. So can the community partners get paid to support the installation of gardens? So we try to connect school with farmers who can ensure gardens can reach high yields.
You need to go back to the budget pages that I mentioned earlier. We have funds available for up to 25% of the funds can be used to pay initial coordination, and up to 10% of the funds can be used to support a community partner. Okay, and that funding can be used as an honorarium, you know, purchase honorariums to look after their services.
Okay, great. I have a very simple question. Are electronic signatures accepted?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, perfect. So the next question is there a priority given to larger schools with food services? So Brenda Kent says she is in a semi-rural school with a lot of food, skills, literature activities, but no food service.
Well, I think we look at every application individually, and there are a lot of factors that we will look at in order to make a decision. So the answer is no, we aren't giving priority to schools with large food services. We're just saying that it has been the experience, you know, that can go either way. If you've got a large food service and they're very excited about your vision and very much along in wanting to support it, then that can be fabulous, right? Because you don't need to do much. Just put in maybe a salad bar unit, and they've got staff to help make it go. Or you could be working with a food service that is not so excited about it and drag their heels, and you know, you don't have a good relationship. You need to work through that, and so you can go either way with a food service. So that it's really we will look at we will look and evaluate each proposal as they come in. If you're a school that has, the main thing is if you want to put in a salad bar, you need to have some basic things available at your school, and you'll need to meet with your environmental health officer to make sure that your plans meet food safety regulations. But the basic is, do you have a space to prepare foods? Do you have a refrigerator? Do you have, you know, do you have a dishwasher? Do you have a freezer? These are very basic things. So what kind of stuff is already available at your school, and how easy will it be to put it in?
Awesome.
I'm just saying it's case by case, yeah.
Okay, great. So the next question is, in the budget, it refers to initial program coordination or initial salad bar service. Can you define what initial means in each of these circumstances? Is it the first 6 months or something else?
Yeah, generally the first 6 months, because you should be gearing up towards developing a financially sustainable school food service here, farm to school salad bar program. So whatever you're putting forward is going to be generating money to pay for these extra services, for not extra, but to pay for the food and to pay for the coordination. But we do acknowledge that when you're trying to set up a program, there are extra coordination time needed to pull it all together, to do the planning, to, you know, get it going. So it's for the first 6 months. You may use the funds to support honorariums for coordination. And again, food service, initial food is something you'll need to purchase. So there's a bit of money in the grant to purchase the initial foods for the first salad bar operation. So there's $3 per child who will be participating in the salad bar. You can use that amount of money for the purchase of the initial food.
Great. So the next question is, can you describe the in-person training for the 15% of the funds?
Well, we're working on that. But the way it's happened in the past is that we will be offering for this contract, we will be offering 2 provincial training sessions, and they will likely be face-to-face training sessions, and they will be offered where we're bringing together people from across the province. So we'll have one in BC and one in Ontario. So 2 in BC, 2 in Ontario, I'm sorry, where we bring together people across the province to share their expertise and stories, but mostly these are sustainability training sessions. So we talk about how do we, it's basically from the beginning, how are we going to anchor our work in what's already going on, how are we going to maintain this once the funds run out. And in these training sessions you'll learn about food safety requirements, we'll talk about working with your large food distributors, we'll talk about fundraising, we'll talk about policy. So yes, 2 in the space of this contract.
Awesome. We've had some questions about space and equipment. So we wanted some of the registrants wanted to know if what are some of the criteria for space? What are some of the examples? If you have limited space or capacity for a salad bar, what will qualify for the grant? Would the salad bar equipment have to be already in place, or would they have to do that after the grant received, or and such?
Okay. I think one of the things you need to do is contact your environmental health officer right away in your planning stages. Actually invite them to the planning table so they can have a look at your space. And you can talk to your environmental health officer if they're able to come visit. You could actually even draw out a sketch of your place and go meet the environmental health officer, but really they need to have, they can provide you some ideas about how much space you need and whether or not what you're proposing in terms of equipment will meet their food safety regulations. I don't know if I answered.
Yeah, I think the question is more like, what if you already have small existing gardens, but it's a limited space? Does that qualify for the grant?
If you already have
yeah. So one of our questions was that the person explained that they had already a small garden and a little bit of a program, but not very limited, and they were wondering if that already fits into the criteria for the grant, or if you were looking for salad bar equipment to have to be in place.
No, you don't have to have salad bar equipment in place. You can use the grant to purchase salad bar equipment. But yeah, I'm just saying that they need to contact their EHO or PHI to make sure that whatever they're thinking of purchasing is adequate to meet food safety.
Great.
I've actually, I wanted to say that I've seen excellent farm-to-school salad bar programs operate in schools that started out with very little space in their initial planning. So they ended up taking over half of a classroom that was empty, for example. Or they ended up doing a little bit of structure modification, so they enlarged their food prep area. So there are different ways around that.
Great. So we have a question about if you already have fundraising for this and need less than $10,000, do you have to specify it when you're applying?
Yes, you'd say when you make your application, we aren't expecting everyone to apply asking for the full $10,000, so just ask for what you need. If it's less, then ask for less.
So can the grant be used to commission a farmer to grow specific produce or raise specific products?
Can the grant be used to commission a farmer?
To grow specific produce or raise products.
So to pay,
maybe they have...
Are you, is the question, do they want to use the grant money to pay the farmer?
I'm not sure. It's James McKellen who, yes, he says yes.
It's not, like, if the farmer, yeah, it's not really intended to pay a salary. I mean, if the farmer is the community partner and is providing, you know, is providing that service of linking the school up to the farm and helping the school with, you know, getting that local food in their menu on the plates, like providing those extra services to help the school make that happen, then they would qualify as a community partner. and could therefore access some funds.
Great. So I think that is most of the questions. If anybody else has any other questions, you can answer them right now in the question comment section, because that's all the questions I have jotted down.
I just wanted more on the farmer one. You know, the farmer should be paid fairly for their product. So the farmers are making money through this by having the schools purchase their products at a fair wage. So paying a farmer on top of that would really mean that the farmer is doing more than just producing foods, because that's already their business. So if the farmer wants additional money, they would have to be operating as a community partner and providing an additional service to the schools. They're either educating in their farm, they're
yeah, you can just
doing something at school, yeah.
All right, it actually looks like we don't have any other questions. So what we'll do then, Joanne, is I'll let you close, and then I just have one last slide just talking about next steps. So I'll let you sort of do a little wrap-up that you have, and then I can finish off.
Okay, great. Well, I really expected to have a whole lot more questions than that. Okay, if you have further questions, please don't, and you feel you didn't maybe get the full answer you wanted here, please send them forward. Our plan is to answer any questions we couldn't answer here and to post them on the website. Or you could send them directly to the project manager at farm2schoolgrantscanada@gmail.com. And really, I'm looking forward to seeing applications. I've seen farm-to-school salad bars happen right across the country. We've got hundreds of them going in really rural, remote communities as far away as Haida Gwaii, up in Newfoundland, not remote, but rural, and in large urban centers. So I'm sure we can make some innovative ideas work here.
Great. Well, thank you, Joanne and Chris, for providing such a great overview of farm-to-school salad bars and the grant program. I think you've inspired lots of people on the call today, and for those of you who are looking then to hear what's going to happen after, the recording, as Joanne mentioned, will be available on the Farm to Cafeteria Canada website, likely in the spot that she showed on her slides. I'm guessing, right, Joanne? It's going to be right under the grant application section?
Yeah, it'll go on the left-hand bar at the top. So as we add in new resources, that's where we put them.
Excellent. And so we will share both the recording. We can also share the PDF copies of the 2 slide presentations. So Joanne and Chris, if you just want to send them and PDF them, we can put them on there too. We will also follow up with all the answers to any of the questions that were received on the call or any that we received via email. As Joanne mentioned, you can email her directly, or Pascal will also be sending a follow-up email to everyone who is participating in today's webinar to see if they have any additional questions. And you will also be sent a follow-up survey in that same email. So if you guys could just take a minute it's actually a very short survey, just a few minutes to do the online survey, that would be really helpful to us. And yeah, I know Joanne is very active on, and Farm to Cafeteria Canada have very active social media, so often the best place to go to find out about what's happening, new interesting projects that are happening, and future webinars and that. So feel free to follow Farm to Cafeteria Canada, Changing the Menu, Nourishing School Communities. We're all active on social media. So yeah, I just had a question here. Well, there's lots of thank yous coming in, so thank you again, Joanne and Chris. And yes, the slides will be available, the PDFs of the slides, so you can have them. Great. Well, thank you. Everybody have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Micheline, for putting it together.
Oh, no problem. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Joanne.